90.3 FM, the sound of Lagos.
A lovely morning to you, and thank you for tuning to Mainland 98.3 FM, the sound of Lagos. It's Thursday. We're super excited. The 11th day in the month of May. As you know, the countdown continues to May 29th. That is Inauguration Day. And I know I've said this quite a number of times, but then you can understand why there's so much excitement, there's so much anticipation for what is to come May 29. But let's forget about the future temporarily and focus on today. Welcome once again to Mainland 98.3 FM, the sound of Lagos. You're listening to Trends in the Papers. My name, of course, is Sage Babalola. As always, I have joining me via the phone lines Fuhad, Saheed, and together we'll be having a look at the reports that made it to the dailies. I'll provide you with new information. We'll also provide you with some of the developments that have happened in the last 24 hours. Let's say good morning to Fuhad before we proceed to check the report in the papers. Fuhad, good morning to you. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Sage. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us, Fuad. So, we do have the papers with us here, The Guardian, Punch newspaper, we have The Nation, and finally Vanguard. So today we're going to open conversations by reviewing the report on the front page of The Guardian newspaper. We have the major story, of course, a development with the arrangement that has gone on with the 10th National Assembly leadership. In fact, the headline reads, "More cracks as APC House divides against itself." That is the headline. Now let's look at the body of this story and analyze what has come of the decision of the ruling party to not only zone to certain geopolitical region, but also to specific individuals. Now we have writers to this story. Akeredolu rejects zoning formula, berates party for undermining APC governors. Why APC aborigines opposed Akpabio. Betara alleges blackmail to drop speakership bid, says no retreat. Northern Coalition kicks against adoption of Akpabio, Abbas. Huriwa pushes Izonaso Kalu for Southeast Senate presidency. Now, signs that the center may no longer hold the spiraling Jare developing over jostle for the 10th National Assembly emerged yesterday, with the chairman Southwest Governors Forum and Ondo State Governor Oluwarotimi Akeredolu becoming the strongest voice of opposition yet to the zoning released on Monday by the National Working Committee. Now, Akeredolu, who is also the chairman of the Southern Governors Forum, has lauded the aspirants eyeing the speakership position for their resilience and urged not to back down. But he has said that in reaction to this, he says that aside from the fact that the position was zoned, like I said before, he's not particularly comfortable with the decision of the National Working Committee to further zone the position to specific individuals. And we can see that there's some sort of division or tension arising as a result of the decision that was made by the APC's National Working Committee. Fuad, you predicted that this would actually cause some sort of, discord, and you were waiting for the reaction of, some members of the National Assembly. Did you think that this is exactly what will happen, or do you also think that maybe zoning to a particular region would have been enough? Do you think the zoning to specific individual is what is fueling or acting as a catalyst to the crisis that has arisen from the decision to zone the position of the Senate presidency and the other posts as well?
Well, I think we should first talk about what the Constitution says about electing principal officers to the National Assembly. Zoning is not captured in the Constitution as to who becomes what when it comes to principal positions of the National Assembly. So zoning, consensus, and all of the things we are talking about now are merely party arrangements, which are decided on based majorly on interest, what I call personal interest, not on anything national interest. And so what I say is that when politicians come up with these things, it's only when their interest is not well captured that you see them throwing these things at us. So I think we need to first establish the fact that what the Constitution says is that, look, elected members of the Senate or the House of Reps shall amongst themselves elect principal officers. So he doesn't even talking about it. In fact, the reality is that even the guidelines for the election cannot supersede what the Constitution says.
Right.
So as it stands today, every member of this 10th Assembly as elected, whether a senator or House of Reps member, is eligible to contest for those positions as dictated by the Constitution. Now let us go into the arrangement of the APC as far as zoning is concerned. Immediately the announcement of the APC was announced, I said, look, the party was treading on a dangerous path. I knew that this was going to happen because, my earlier prediction was that the party was going to avoid making an official announcement about zoning or consensus candidate because I knew it was going to be a bit delicate. But I was surprised when the party made an official announcement to say, look, they were zoning positions to particular regions. And one would have said, okay, maybe at that level we can even excuse the party that, look, it was to avoid some level of rancor and to create some level of equity and fairness. But when they now went further to now micro zone into individuals, at that point I knew the party was going to run into trouble. Mm. And if you read the report further, what the governor of Ondo State is saying was exactly what I said yesterday or the day before. That look, okay, let us even now take the argument of the politicians for what it is and accept that, look, the reason why the party is doing this is to create a platform for equity, justice, and fairness. Now look at the arrangement of the APC. You gave the Senate presidency to the South-South.
Yes.
You did not allow any South-South or all the South-South people to decide who they want. You gave it to an individual in Senator Akpabio.
Yes.
We leave that at that. You gave the deputy Senate presidency to Senator Jibrin Barau from the Northwest, that is from Kano State.
Yeah.
It's not as if you said, oh, all senators from Kano or from the Northwest, so
compete.
You have a right to contest, and all of that. You already gave it to an individual. I'm still coming to other issues. Now, the speakership was now given to the same Northwest. Then you gave it to Senator Abbas. Sorry, Honorable Abbas. Honorable Abbas. And then the Southeast eventually got something in the position of Deputy Speaker
to Ben.
In the person of Ben Kanu. But then let us now ask ourselves, if you look at all of these arrangements from the president to the vice president, Senate president, deputy Senate president, speaker and deputy speaker, where is the North-Central captured in this arrangement now?
I mean,
and if anybody is going to argue that what politicians do when they share these positions among themselves is to look at contributions of regions to the victory of the party. I ask myself again, what was the contribution of the South-South to the victory of the APC that the North-Central did not contribute? In practical terms now, and I gave the explanation yesterday, the North-Central state, having 6 states, the APC won in Kwara, they won in Kogi, they won in Benue. Against, and in other states that they even lost, they were able to make 25% of the vote.
Yes.
So where is the fairness and equity now that the North-Central region has been completely removed from this calculation? So again, the politicians are very smart when they throw up these things. What the APC has done basically is that some power brokers within the APC are deliberate about hijacking the 10th assembly. It's not anything about equity or fairness. There are some power brokers who are intentional about hijacking the 10th assembly. And the danger of it again is that we may not eventually get an independent, vibrant assembly that we so much desire. We know what our experiences were when this outgoing ninth assembly. It was a complete rubber stamp assembly. It's an assembly that did not give us what we can call practically dividends of the legislature in terms of checks and balances. And here we are even treading on a more dangerous path. If we allow this said assembly to be hijacked by power brokers, it's going to be a very sad one for the country.
So, Fuhad, what implications exactly do you see coming out of this, especially now that the northern senators are fighting this and they're asking that a new zoning formula be introduced? Do you see some sort of amendments to the zoning formula? And especially because they've named specific individuals, do you think, should I say, envision a situation where those that have been named will now be unnamed, for lack of better words, and then it will be given to a different person? Don't you think that an attempt to rectify it might even cause further discord?
I watched the meeting of this House of Reps members with the National Working Committee of the APC. The chairman was there, the secretary, Yola Omishore, was there, and other executive members of the APC. And after all of the dissatisfactions as expressed by these honorables, they didn't get any really real what I can call a reasonable reply from the National Working Committee. So I doubt if the party was going to rescind its decision on this, because again they've gone too far to be able to make a U-turn. I think they've gone far into it, and it will be difficult for them to make a U-turn now.
Right.
It is now left for members of the APC who are dissatisfied about this arrangement, the opposition political parties, to look at what they make of this, whether they can wrestle power from these power brokers who are intentional about hijacking the 10th assembly. So that's why I say it is left for the opposition and the dissatisfied members, if they can work together to stage the decision of the APC. But for us to think that the APC will make a U-turn on this, I doubt it really.
Thank you very much, Fuhad. Page 6 of the Guardian newspaper, that's where we have detail of that particular report. Now, let's move to other headlines as reported in the Guardian newspaper. Tinubu overseas trips tears a reaction. Riders to this story shun speculation, Afenifere chieftain says. Why administration cannot be different from Buhari's. Now, acting leader of the Pan-Yoruba Social Cultural Organization, Afenifere, Chief Ayo Adebanjo, yesterday urged Nigerians to shun speculations and accept reasons the president-elect Bola Tinubu gave for his trip to France. Tinubu had again jetted out of the country to Europe ahead of his May 29 inauguration. Now, a statement was put out by his aide, Tunde Rahman. That's 2 weeks after the president-elect had returned to the country from the United Kingdom, Saudi Arabia, and France. He's saying that the president-elect on Wednesday afternoon left Nigeria for a walking visit. He will use the opportunity of the trip to fine-tune transition plans and programs and his policy options with some of the key aides without unnecessary pressure and distractions. So he also went on ahead to speak about the fact that, you know, the campaign was a very rigorous physical exercise, and even with that, against speculations that the president-elect left the country on health matters, he's claiming that in fact the president-elect left the country in order to, should I say, form diplomatic relationship, to come up with ideas and talk to stakeholders in relevant, you know, organizations outside the country on how to better rule Nigeria. So Fuad, what do you think about all of these speculations? And do you think that maybe a little bit of more transparency from the president-elect side would quell this storm of insinuations? Because as you know, a lack of information usually gives room or opens a portal to insinuation. Or do you think we should just allow it rest, especially because he is not yet president, he's just president-elect, and we should stop inquiring into his trips and his activities at least until he is inaugurated May 29?
He's president-elect, and so we don't even need to speculate. We are just concerned. And like other Nigerians, I'm also concerned because he's president-elect. And all things being equal, on May 29, he will be sworn in as president. If he was just a private citizen who was not seeking, who initially was not seeking public office, or is not now elect as a president, I might not really bother with his trips. And that's why I said it's not just speculation. These are concerns by Nigerians about a man that has been voted for as president-elect and who is going to be their president in a few days. So all of the concerns are valid. And if you look at the reasons given by his press secretary, Rahman, all of the things that have been given for the reason why he has jetted out again, just after 2 weeks that he returned, are things I can do in Nigeria. There's none of the things that have been listed as the reason for him to have left the country again this time that cannot be done here in Nigeria. It is about the rigor of the campaign. There's enough first places in Nigeria that he can rest. Have a very brilliant, wonderful rest without distraction. In fact, as it is, if he doesn't want to see anybody as president-elect, with the number of security details around him, they can curtail the movements of people around him. That's number one. It is about planning for the transition and all of that. Again, he's now stays at the defense house as president-elect.
Yes.
That place is sufficient, is okay enough for him to do whatever he wants to do as president-elect. Again, I'm not going to be bothering about whether it's about health matters, they are gone for medical checkups or not. But I'm just reacting to people who think it's about speculation. I'm saying these are the main concerns from Nigerians about the president-elect who is going to become president all things being equal by May 29 in a few days. And like you have rightly pointed out, I think some level of transparency is also expected, so that, again, if it's about speculation, we can put some of these speculations aside. But all of the reasons given for him to have left the country again, for me, are not enough for him to leave the country. All of those things can be done here in Nigeria. And we have our fears that this is not going to be a repeat of the Buhari administration.
Yeah. It's even in the reports. People are saying that, are we going to have a situation where we spend the bulk of our resources, catering to the health needs of whoever is going to emerge president? That's the concern and fear of people as well.
Well, again, that's what I've just said. Because, again, I think for almost how many months we had a president that even left the country attending to his medical concerns. And there are people who think the reason why, despite all of the good intentions of President Muhammadu Buhari, all of the ideas he has, the reason why he could not achieve a lot of the things he planned to achieve was because he was actually struggling with his health. So he really couldn't even concentrate on governance because he was battling with his health. And I think there was even a time that President Muhammadu Buhari admitted that his frail health situation had affected his performance. That he would have been a better president if this was when he was a military head of state, when he was younger and had no issues with his health. So health concerns are valid, really. And I think Nigerians that are asking these questions have a reason to ask these questions.
Right. Well, thank you very much, Fuhad. Page 3 of the Guardian newspaper is where the story is. Still on page 3, another headline, Dangote Elumelu hail NNPC's performance under Kyari. Now, Nigeria National Petroleum Company, NNPCL, has been commended for great performance by eminent businessmen and entrepreneurs Alhaji Aliko Dangote and Mr. Tony Elumelu. Now, according to Africa's richest man and chairman of the Dangote Group, Aliko Dangote, by its sterling performance under its group chief executive officer, Mele Kyari, he says NNPC has what it takes to calm the African version of Saudi Arabia's Aramco. Now, Elumelu says that he's chairman of the Hares Holding. He says that NNPC deserves praise for the effort made to curb crude oil theft. So, Fuhad, we have two business tycoons here, clapping their hands for the position of NNPCL at this time, especially under the administration of Mele Kyari. I'm going to ask you if you are on their side, but then again, for context, would you be kind enough to give us some sort of, say, mini appraisal of the performance of Mele Kyari and some sort of, should I say, maybe elucidate on how well do you think the NNPC is doing with regards to, well, their primary responsibility as sole importers of PMS into the country, and transparency regarding their finances, and also how well you think they've been able to handle the situation of fuel scarcity and the figures that they have reeled out over the last couple of years. If you can touch on these things and tell us if truly you believe under Mele Kyari, NNPCL has done an amazing job.
Well, this is my own review. But before I do a review or an appraisal, I need to first establish the fact that Alhaji Aliko Dangote is a businessman, he's a private citizen, and a major investor in the oil and gas sector in Nigeria. So he has a right to his own opinion.
Yes.
Mr. Tony Elumelu, the private citizen, is a successful businessman and also a major investor in the oil and gas sector. So he also has a right to his own opinion and appraisal of the NNPC under Mele Kyari. I'll leave that at that. I'm going to come back to them again, but let me just give my own appraisal. Number one, I disagree with them completely, and I'll give the following reasons. Number one, under Mele Kyari as the GMD of NNPC before it became NNPCL, we had contaminated fuel brought into the country without any consequence or repercussions to those that brought it in. Up till now, we have no clear explanation as to who did that at that time. Under Mele Kyari, we have seen the sustenance of a fraudulent subsidy regime under Mele Kyari as the GMD of NNPC. Under Mele Kyari, the GMD of NNPC, we have unexperienced fuel scarcity for almost 6 months. If you remember, for almost 6 months.
Yes.
There was fuel scarcity in this country without anybody explaining the reasons to us. I think the only reason he gave was that there was a glitch in logistics and all of that. That is same Mele Kyari as the GMD of NNPC. We have none of our refineries working. We have 4 non-functional refineries. Under this same Mele Kyari, I must say that he's probably the most probed NNPC GMD by the National Assembly. I say probed, invited for probes of different issues. I say different issues, negative issues, as far as the running of NMPC is concerned. I give a quick review again. July 5, 2022, the rest someone made a query and the Minister of State for Petroleum over petrol consumption probe. 25th of March 2022, the House of Reps someone made a query and silver over the state of our refinery. The same made a query on September 21, 2022, was summoned by the House of Reps over alleged operation of secret accounts by the NNPC. July 5, 2022, the rest also summoned military and others over fuel consumption probe. I don't know whether you are following it.
I'm with you, Fuhad.
September 21, 2022, the rest also summoned military over a joint venture contract. And I think the Minister of Justice was also summoned alongside military. A long list. April 4, 2022, 664 billion revenue. The rest summoned military over 18 subsidiaries, over non-remittance of that particular amount of money. And I think the last one also was about the 3.7 billion contract that the rest also summoned in permanent. How do you give a pass mark to somebody and an organization with all of the things I read out?
Fuhad, it's not in my mind that you hear teachers strike died. I think that you provided enough information for people to make an informed decision.
Is there anything to that? You said I should do an appraisal.
Yes.
I don't know my appraisal.
Yes, I understand you.
So from my own appraisal now, scoring over 100.
No, I
Give
mean,
you the-
I do no such thing. But actually, they reference the Petroleum Industry Act. You know, they reference, the content of the Petroleum Industry Act, and they're quite confident that, if we follow it by the letter, we would see some sort of improvement in the performance of NNPCL as it stands. So let's put aside all of their inadequacies for 5 seconds and talk about the Petroleum Industry Act. Do you think that that particular policy and its content is enough to make up for the long list of inadequacies that you have just listed to us?
You see, we do have a shortfall of ideas, policies, and what we're supposed to do to fix the oil sector. There's enough on ground.
Right.
Yes, I understand the reference to the Petroleum Industry Act, but I keep talking about the willingness to do the right thing. It's not about the laws or the extant laws that are available. Are we ready to implement these laws to the later? Are we ready to really implement and ensure that what is put in those books is what is operated and followed through? Again, these are businessmen who have also benefited maybe from the running of the NNPC. Why would an Aliko Dangote not praise the GMD of NNPC? Because during his tenure, he was able to build one of the largest refineries in the world. In
the free trade zone, by the way.
He will be, and of course, he also got the 20% share. In the tune of $2.5 billion from the NNPC, so it's going to praise him. Even if you read the story, look at what Mr. Tony Lumelu said about the fact that his company was brought back to life under the administration of the carry of the NNPC. So we're able to do all of this to private individuals, private businessmen.
Right.
And here we have 4 refineries that are not working. And I laugh when they say the NNPC has the potential. Around just like that of Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia's around is not run the way we're running PC. So I think we should be clear about that.
All right, then. You can get more information on pages 3 of the Guardian newspaper. Now, let's move on. Buhari seeks Senate approval to spend $800 million palliative loan. Let's look through this. We do have the story here. They are writers to the story actually. Admits Nigeria has no space for more borrowing. Budget Office DG appropriation shouldn't be a shopping list. Civil society groups kick. Disbursement will affect lives of 60 million Nigerians, says President. Now, President Muhammadu Buhari has asked the Senate to approve a fresh loan request of $800 million from the World Bank despite the public outcry that has greeted the move. Now, the World Bank facility government said it's aimed at providing succor to the poorest of the poor upon removal of the petrol subsidy that is slated to come to force 2 days after Buhari's exit. So apparently, let's just go on ahead and talk about this. Fuhad. Now, the president is writing to the Senate asking that they give approval to a fresh loan of $800 million. Now, this is quite different from the initial $800 million that we secured from the World Bank. Secured, I use very intentionally to, of course, insulate the people from the economic shocks that would most likely come up after subsidy removal. So now the president is asking for a fresh $800 million loan for something quite similar to the same reason as the initial loan that was collected. I mean, as much as people did not necessarily, embrace the initial loan, then, we've settled into that reality that fine, do the transfer, the vulnerable citizen that you have on your social list. But now there's a fresh loan for almost the same reason. And for what I'm trying to reach the logicality of this, or I'm trying to question the logicality of this. Why are we borrowing money for something that is the exact same reason as to why we borrowed an initial $800 million in the first place? Fuad.
If you say that, actually, when the news broke that a particular facility from the World Bank had been given to Nigeria, $800 million to cushion the effect of subsidy removal, and that indeed there was already a plan on how the money would be spent. If you read the story further, and I think we already had that information, that $35 million from this particular amount of money was going to be used for logistics, staffing of people who are going to manage the money. $53 million,
actually, $53 million.
$53 million.
Yes.
Just this, the money that we have not even gotten. We already have a way of, we already have a plan on how we're going to share it. And so it's important for Nigerians to know that from the $800 million, not everything will be shared to vulnerable Nigerians, quote and unquote. There's a $53 million that will be used for logistics, to hire staff, to get offices. The idea was, okay, this money I'm going to share to 10,000 households, which would most probably reach, reading out the story, you asked about the logic. There's nothing logical about it. This does not make any sense. It's a complete waste of time. It opens up an opportunity for another way for people to steal this entire money. That has been done before. And so what I'm going to say is, if you see why people are saying we should have a vibrant National Assembly, if you see why people are calling for us not to have a rubber stamp assembly, this is one of the reasons. Ordinarily, if we have a very vibrant assembly, National Assembly, we have a very strong, independent assembly, this particular request would never. Do you see the danger of having a rubber stamp assembly now?
Yes.
Because our fears now is that, look, this approval will be given. In just less than 20 days of this administration to exit, they are borrowing this amount of money. Again, I say, there's nothing that will cushion the effect of removing subsidy the way the government wants to do it without fixing our local consumption on the nation. Unfortunately, it is another loan that will be hanging on the neck of the country for another 40 years.
I mean, the initial one, they spread it across 25 years. That's the initial $800 million loan, 25 years to, pay the sum assured, or that's what's called. And then also the premiums and all the, extra sub-charges and what have you. Fuhad, with our rising debt profile, is there supposed to be a limitation of some kind? Because, for example, the Ways and Means loans is 5% of your previous earning, right? So we know that there's a limit that we have absolutely no regard for, by the way, because we've collected money above the limit. Is there something like that when it comes to public debt? Is there some sort of limit to how much money a country is allowed to borrow? And I'm still quite shocked that we probably will see the World Bank indulging this new loan. They probably will still give us this loan. Fuad.
The man at the debt management office already saying that we are going to run into trouble. The debt management office has continued to warn us that we are hanging by the cliff, and any moment from now we're going to tilt away. The way we are accumulating debt, and that we are already even surpassing our debt credibility issue. And then for you to, in the question of the World Bank giving us these things, the reality is that, look, if you understand Western imperialism, and I say with no sense of responsibility, because this is something we are passionate about. This is something some of us have studied for years, and we understand how it works. If you understand the fact that a lot of these foreign institutions are tools of Western imperialism, you understand why they give us all of this money, and you understand what we are going to do. The reality is that if you want to die, they have to bury you. If you are a country, you have corrupt leaders who are not interested in how the country is run, and they want to kill the country. These Western imperial structures will help to bury you. Don't kill yourself, they bury you easily.
Well,
don't be surprised that they are giving us some of these funds. They will give us more because these are Western imperialist structures aimed at ensuring that we don't get thinking leaders who are going to drive the country out of the current state of quagmire that we have found ourselves.
Right. Well, you probably will start seeing alerts, 5,000 naira, as is stated in the report here, that the monies will be transferred
are you expecting alerts?
I'm not a vulnerable Nigerian.
There's already a list.
You don't know if they have my name now. We don't know how, because there was no information in the papers as to how they compiled that particular list. We don't know. So you never can tell my name can be there. I'm a vulnerable Nigerian.
Tell me when you get alert.
I'm a vulnerable Nigerian. So people might start to see the alert. 5,000 naira will be sent to individuals, some 10 million of them, and they say they're doing this for the sake of transparency, so that there'll be some sort of digital footprint of some kind, so that they can, explain how these monies are being disbursed. For me, I'm just saying what they're saying. I'm just echoing what they're saying. So let's see what happens. Let's see what happens at the end of the day. Page 6 of the Guardian newspaper has more details of this story. If you're just joining us, this is Trends in the Papers on Mainland 98.3 FM. We're looking through the stories as reported in our dailies. My name is Sage Babalola. Fuhad is with me here virtually, and he's doing he's helping us give analysis to the stories that we have been addressing so far. So we have one more headline here on the front page of the Guardian, so that we can move to other papers. We're streaming, of course, we're streaming live on social media, Facebook, YouTube, Mainland 98.3 FM, so you can go on there and watch everything going on in the live studio. Now, more troubles for students as JAMB biometric verification falters. No fewer than 80,000 candidates on Saturday took the rescheduled Unified Tertiary Matriculation Examination across the country. Now, the Joint Admission and Matriculation Board's head of Public Affairs and Protocol, Dr. Fabian Benjamin, said that 80,000 candidates could not sit in the 2023 UTME within their scheduled time, and most of this has been attributed to the biometric verification failure. They say that so far, the whole point of the verification process is to cut down on impersonation, exam malpractice, and what have you. But because of technical difficulties, we have students having a difficult time writing their examinations. I think that just begs the question that as much as we're trying to adopt technology into pretty much every sector of our life, do you think that maybe we should see to it that we reach a certain level of perfection, maybe not perfection, but a certain level of efficiency before we start to implement these things into examination, writing, etc., etc.? What do you think about this biometric verification failure? Do you think that maybe for now we should revert back to how we do it before, until we get a certain level of assurance that this is not going to pose a problem for students who are writing these examinations?
The Joint Admission and Matriculation Board introduced these CBT-based exams. I think it's how many years now?
Fuhad, we cannot really hear you, please.
Can you hear better now?
Okay, yes, we can work with this. Go ahead, please.
All right, so I think it's been almost a good to see these glitches again. But one would expect here and there, as far as the conduct of the exams is concerned, so use our students to technology and all of that, even with the way they write that. Because a lot of students, I think the last time we said she didn't write it until verify all manner of things came up with. I think we need to appeal to JAM. They need to look at how this exam is conducted and fix some of these glitches. It's becoming embarrassing, really.
Right. Thank you very much, Fuhad. The Guardian newspaper, that's it for the report we have on the front page of the Guardian newspaper. Very briefly, let's segue to other papers we have here. As the writer said this, Adamu pacifies aggrieved aspirants for speaker. More complaints trail recommendation on National Assembly leadership. Dolu calls for NEC intervention. So, Fuhad, they're pledging that they would to deal with this problem. If, just like you said, if this was just zoned to a certain region, right, it would have been a whole lot easier. But now that specific names have been named, would you now tell them that our party, fracas, or we don't want a disconnected, National Assembly? So, revisiting the zoning template or formula that was used. Again, I asked the question, Fuad, what strategy do you
Going too far into this mess and cleaning it up will be very difficult. Another issue from this particular situation is this: how do decision without getting the nod of all party major stakeholders in the party? Because if you listen to some of the House of Reps members, what they are saying is that they were never even consulted before the party made this announcement.
Yes.
And that's why I said this is an attempt by some power brokers within the APC to hijack the 10th Assembly. If indeed there are members of the APC, some power brokers who in their thinking are deliberate about hijacking the 10th Assembly. And what we're going to see basically is that we're going to have more confusion as far as this matter.
Well, I mean, we will see that there will be a lack of synergy because there will be a lot of, contempt for one another. Yes, exactly. So it will be very difficult to work in an environment like that one. And they would come up with policies or, oppose certain policies, not because they think it's bad, but because it's coming from somebody that they have a problem with. And once that starts to happen, it's quite difficult to function, as a body.
The most annoying part of this issue again is this. How does people who are not assembly members elect want to decide who becomes what in the National Assembly? Because a lot of these guys that put all of these lists together are not even senators elect, House of Reps members elect. How do you decide for this assembly who becomes what? And that's why we kept saying that, look, it is not wrong for the leadership of the party to look into this issue, but they have to be careful to want to over decide for the assembly.
Right.
And that's why, for me, I'm waiting to see what the response of the opposition political parties will be on this particular matter.
Right. Thank you very much, Fuad. The front page of the Nation newspaper is where you get the story, and it continues on page 4. Excuse me. So we have another headline here. Why annual budget failed to perform. Rider to the story, Buhari seeks Senate nod for 800 million loan. Now, we've addressed the second part of this particular story, but I want us to look at the initial report here. Now, the Budget Office of the Fed, its Director General Ben Akabweze, who stated this yesterday, identified lack of organic law to guide budgeting process, budgets not being anchored on development plan as factors against budget implementation. Now, they're saying that they spent roughly about $100 billion to take care of about 20,000 abandoned projects nationwide. That is the part that I want us to talk about, Fuad. We see in the budget, because according to this report, about $100 billion is spent to maintain, in a manner of speaking, about 20,000 abandoned projects in the country. I know that White Elephant Project is not a foreign concept to a lot of these people. They come about, they talk about it, they tell us about it, how much change it's going to bring to our GDP and our economy at large and what have you. But we have structures in the country. I mean, I didn't even know that it was up to the tune of 20,000. We were still talking about the Jaokuta steel and what have you, our refineries and many more. So 20,000 abandoned projects is costing us $100 billion, and we're taking this out of the money that we don't even have. Fuad, what say you?
The reason why we have our budget failing and failing to meet up expected standards, and in terms of budget performance, the reason why year in, year out, we have less than 10% performance from our budget is the fact that it's just anticipatory budgeting. The monies are not even available.
Right.
If you have a budget of about 20 trillion and about 11 trillion is deficit, you don't have the money. You should understand why the budget cannot fly in the first place. So you even have projects that are slated on anticipatory budgeting. It's not as if the money is available.
Oh.
So you're not tempting for failure at the issue. Because what you see is just anticipatory budgeting. It's not as if the money is available. Oh, we are going to do this is the amount of money. Again, some of these projects come with some manner of padding. You understand what I mean by padding?
Yes, of course.
Inflated figures, padding, White Elephant project. Unfortunately, the money to even execute these projects are not even available.
Right.
So that's why you have about 20-something thousand abandoned projects.
And the thing is,
what will now happen is that year in, year out, those projects will continue to resurface in our budget. We're not okay. Wait now.
Finished. You can also get this on the front page of the Nation newspaper, and the story also continues on page 4. So we do have another headline here. Okay. Lagos seals off 12 banana island houses. Or let's take the story that's on page 6 before we go there, so we follow this in numerical order. We have states fail to assess 46 billion naira education fund, UBEC deplores in action. So we have this story on here. The Universal Basic Education Commission, UBEC, yesterday said that 46.2 billion naira matching grant for the development of public primary and junior secondary school has remained unaccessed by some state. While presenting the 2022 Capital Budget Implementation Report, Zakari said 162 billion was allocated for states as UBE grant between 2019 and 2022, and while 116 billion was accessed by 36 states, he said the total unaccessed UBA matching grant as at April 30 by the 36 states and FCT stands at 46.2 billion between 2019 and 2022. So basically, these are funds that are pumped into education, of which we're not even following the recommendation of UNESCO. I think this year, I don't have that figure right off the top of my head, but then it definitely is not 15% of our budget. And he's saying that the money is, I doubt that. I don't think so. I don't think so. So, and that's like 10% below UNESCO's recommendation for education, right? So he's saying that there's still 46.2 billion naira that for some reason is this shocking news, Fuhad? Anything that has to do with finance, there's always some sort of clandestine, it's just there's no information, there's no appropriate information. We don't know why, but we know states cannot access money that was put out for them to take care of education in their states. Would you like to comment on that briefly?
Well, since we don't have the why, I think it would be difficult for me to comment on this particular story. But again, the story gives the reality of our funding of our public schools become a problem. So, but again, like you have just rightly pointed out, I don't have the why and how, and so I think we should just move on from that story.
Right. Okay, we have another headline here. Oh, you can get that on page 6 of the Nation newspaper. Lagos State government seals off 12 banana island houses. I'm trying to check because apparently the story is not on the page that it's supposed to be. But basically, let's just talk about this. What do you think about the sealing of these houses? I'm pretty sure that this was prompted by the number of building collapses that we've seen over the last month, and now they're going through all of the buildings that we have in Banana Island, checking to see if they pass the integrity test, and about 12 apparently has failed the integrity test. Hence the decision to seal off this building, maybe pending investigation. Do you think that at least this is laudable? Maybe not proactive, because it's unfortunate that we react rather than prevent, but at least do you see a reasonable outcome and a minimization in building collapsing because of
being reactive was lost? Because again, if you saw the video, you know that it was just about Sherlock on the
highbrow area,
highbrow area where you expect that safety standards, building standards are adhered to 100%. So I'm surprised that in quote and unquote almighty Banana Island, a highbrow area of that nature, you still have developers trying to cut corners. The building in Lagos, God knows how many regulatory channels you're going to have to pass through to get approval.
Hello? Oh, we lost Fuhad. Well, just like he was saying, these regulatory bodies, especially if you're building, structures that are above, 2-3 stories, for every time there's a new, story, there's a need for a representative of the agency to actually come and check it. So they have to check every single, story. If you're building, a high-rise building, or you're erecting a structure that is, high-rise or something like that. So, I guess that this might be a good thing. Yeah, we might have less building collapses if we continue like this. Well, okay, we have Fuhad back. Fuhad, do you want to conclude on that so we can move to other stories?
I think the Lagos State government should just stop being reactive and be more proactive.
Right.
I think they need to look at the regulatory frameworks for buildings, construction in the country, and fix it. Just fix the problem. The problem that can be fixed. And I think they need to also look inward at corruption within the city.
Drive. Dangote Elumelu rates NNPCL high in performance. Other headlines here. Oyetola urges Osun APC to accept Supreme Court verdict on Adeleke. I mean, do you need to be told to obey the Supreme Court? It is the Supreme Court. You don't have
There's no choice.
so there's no choice. I don't know why I'm telling you. What are you going to do? Where do you want to go? Let me through the headlines. Top story: dissent in APC. Aspirants demand fresh zoning. Decry zoning exclusion. Also on the front page of the Punch newspaper, subsidy. Buhari seeks approval. Minister arrested over. He's been arrested and it's still allegedly. So let's see what happens after that. 4 men on trial for killing cousin. Lagos arraigns Eze Ndigbo for terrorism. NNPCL needs huge investments to meet demand, says Dangote. And finally, for Vanguard newspaper, senators-elect, reps-elect move for open contest. Supreme Court verdict focus on delivering good governance. Oyetola tells Adeleke. EFCC arrests ex-power minister Saleh Maman. Buhari writes Senate seeks approval of 800 million naira loan. BVN has no expiry date, says CBN. Oh, unfortunately, we don't have time for this. Maybe when we come back for mainland focus, Fuhad, we can have a brief conversation about the BVN story. We had initial reports that there's an expiration on BVN, but the CBN has said this is for life. Yeah, this is for life. There's no expiration whatsoever. Let's draw the curtain on this conversation for now. 8:40, we'll be back for mainland focus. It's open mic Thursday, so you get to choose the focus of the day. It's still mainland 98.3 FM, the sound of Lagos. Don't go anywhere.